the Kālele Kūlana Painu, probably in the end of 102, and for sure during second year. One of the more important grammatical so-called patterns that you will learn is what's called the Kālele Kūlana or Kālele Kūlana Painu. And the first thing, just to break down the meaning, the word Kālele means to emphasize, to stress, to put weight upon, yeah, like Kālele Akena, something else we've also looked at. What are you going to emphasize is what's called here the Kūlana. The Kūlana is the condition, the situation, and the big thing to remember, as you see it, always, a Kālele Kūlana, Painu, always really answers or stresses the answers to a question. And the question generally deals with when something occurs, where something occurs, how something occurs, and really the ideas of why something occurs. And for example, think of all those kinds of questions that you ask in this way. Yeah? When did you go to sleep last night? Where did you sleep? How did you sleep? Why did you fall asleep in class perhaps or something? Anytime you're answering those kinds of questions or asking the questions yourself, yeah, so whether you're asking the question or you're actually answering the question, to stress the idea of when, where, how, and why something occurs or happens is a Kālele Kūlana sentence. Yeah. Now, some important rules to remember the Kālele Kūlana Painu, things to always kind of remember in a sense, is that when we think about what is stressed, it's not stressing the who, it's not stressing the what, but in what we call the po'o, or the head of the sentence, it's always, again, stressing or answering the question when, where, how, and why something occurs. Now, the Kālele Kūlana can be used in all tenses, yeah, whether it's something of the past, present, or, of course, in the future. Some other things to remember as, in a sense, rules is to look at our, what we call our maka painu, our verb markers, our painu markers that we employ in the Kālele Kūlana Painu. And the thing to remember is that there are always elua maka painu. There are always two maka painu. And just like in the regular pepeke painu sentence, there is a transformation or change from the usual maka painu in the pepeke painu sentence. And for example, if you notice anything that stresses completion of action, or the hopena, for example, something has reached a particular condition, just like the ua in the pepeke painu, in the Kālele Kūlana, we use the e painuai to mark that idea. We can see the e painune is, of course, directly related to the ke painune. E painuana, and this e painuana generally is what you would call a past progressive, something really in the past that was described as being performed or being performed in a process. And a past progressive we use, luckily, iana also, exactly the same. So a lot of times it's kind of, it would be something that was occurring, was happening. Now these two, I'm going to just put an extra star here, is that now when we talk about something that's going to be occurring in the future, which will be occurring, which generally in a pepeke painu, yeah, e painuana, yeah, e heliana, e nohoana. For now, I kind of, because I would put this as idea, think of this being more kakaikahi, yeah, or rare. That generally when you use a Kālele Kūlana for future, we generally do not use this one many times, and usually, and for me, I would actually say we should use this one here. So you notice in this one, maybe I should put the star here instead of a bigger star. So anytime you're talking about the future, will be occurring in a sense, yeah, where something will be occurring, how something will be occurring, we For this class, I'd like you guys to kind of practice the more, I'll say, higher level, which is instead of not just e painuana, but you notice that the ana has moved up front. So instead, ana e painuai, which would be the same as the e ana future for the Kālele, the pepeke painu. And the e painuai, kind of ties into the e painu in many ways for the pepeke painu. For example, e heleao, e noho oe, and also what you would think of as being kind of a habitual would, should. So when it comes to the maka painu, we should kind of always remember that these maka painu, we have two maka painu, and really to also remember is that the maka painu or the maka painu chunk is really, in Hawaiian, is going to become what we call the second po'o. It's just like when you do a negative pepeke painu, where a'ole becomes the main po'o, and the verb chunk becomes the second po'o. In the same way, in a Kālele Kūlana, for example, ua now becomes I painuai. And therefore, when we think about it grammatically, just to kind of remember, we always think of this as being what becomes the second po'o. Okay, let's kind of also remember the stresses. If you look at time, so we're talking about stressing time, answering that question, of course, when something. We have some basic ways of asking those questions. There are many ways you can ask these kinds of questions. Anytime you focus on a when something occurs, it's a Kālele Kūlana. Some of the questions are here, which means, of course, when something will, should, shall is going to be occurring, perhaps in the future, or perhaps, again, the main idea, habitual, or would, should, shall, and it's a basic when. Are here. Compared to ina here, which is another way of asking the question when. So these are all different ways to ask the question, of course, when. So think of ahia as being incomplete, real simply, and ina here marking the idea of something in the past, or perhaps incomplete, or a past progressive, or something happening in what you would think of being in the past, in ahia. This is a common mistake where people take words like ahia and kind of use them as a general question of when, which we should kind of write ahia again simply, in a very simple way, future, incomplete, and inahia, in the past. Other ways of generically asking when, ikamanava here, or more commonly perhaps, ikava here. Maybe I want to be specific, asking, well, which year? Which one? Last year? Next year? Ikamakahiki here. Now, if I wanted to ask not just which year, but I wanted to be specific about give me the year in a number. I want to know the year, the actual number. Ikamakahiki ehia is the question to ask. Of course, which asks, Ikamakahiki ehia? Ikamakahiki umi kumaiva kanahiku kumaono, for example. I might say, from what year? Maikamakahiki here. From which year? I can also, again, in the same way, if I'm looking for a number, use the word ehia in place of here. Makamahina here, what month? Makamahina ehia, maybe I'm looking for the number of the month. Other ways to ask when, in generic fashion, what day of the week? Ikapoa here. And again, the word ahia, just like ehia, marking a series. Ikapoa kahi, ikapoa lua, ikapoa kolu are ways to answer that question. Ikala ehia, we can know, ikala here, I want to know the particular date. Ikala here, which day? So you can see here and ehia are commonly used in the Kālele Kūlana. Ehia, of course, being more specific in regards to a number. Here in general fashion of which one. And so when you're asking for time, of course, you're not asking which time or what time, but asking Hawaiian, give me the number of the hour. Ikahola ehia, ikahola elua, ikahola elima, and so forth. When we ask or focus in a question of where something occurs, we can use everything from, just like in a Ami, marking pepeke henua perhaps, yeah, location of something, maybe in time. But now I want to focus on where something occurs. So as you front that and that becomes a po'o, in the same way, when we ask, for example, the word ihea or mahea, in the same way, yeah, where something might occur, and of course ihea perhaps with the idea of towards where, in what direction did something also occur. Maihea mai, yeah, again, from where? Mayavai, yeah, from whom? Mayakimo, Mayalawa. And again, Mevai, yeah, with whom? Yeah, with whom perhaps something occurs. And it's going to scroll down. The other two that are commonly asked in very much the same way, just like when and where, of course, is asking the question, how something occurred. So generic how in English, how something occurs, is also a Kālele Kūlana. And so whether you ask the question pehea, how, that's a generic how, yeah, pehea. Or something like, in what way? Make anohea, yeah, in what kind of way, what kind of capacity, in what way? Me kiaha, with what? Me kialoha. Me vai, with whom? So these are four very, basic ways of asking something that's related to the question of how something occurs. When you focus on the why, we generally have two different kinds of whys in a very simple, yeah. Nokia, for what purpose? Yeah, for what? Nokiaha. So that's a real generic kind of why something occurs. And ikiaha, more specific, is also a question of why or how, but it's a different kind of how. This is in fact explaining kind of more, especially if you're asking the question of from what? What is the cause of something? Because from a pepeke painu ano, yeah, we have what's called a causative. And so maybe I want to say, ask the question, what caused the death of the bird? How did the bird die? Why? In English, you might say, how did the bird die? Yeah, the bird died from what? What is the cause of the birth? What is the cause? And therefore, that's why this is E versus, no. If the bird, for example, died for a purpose, no. If the bird died from something, that was the cause, ikiaha. So let's look at the whiteboard and look at some examples running through the Kālele Kūlana painu. So some basic things to kind of remember about the Kālele Kūlana painu is to understand where it comes from in comparison to a pepeke painu. So a pepeke painu, just going to write a pepeke painu up here. I might have a real basic sentence like ʻŌlelo o kimo I Maui I ka poalua. Yeah, ʻŌlelo o kimo I Maui ka poalua. We would recognize that pepeke painu, of course, that this is the po'o, this would be the piko, and we in fact have two different ave marked with E. The first one, I Maui, of course, we recognize as a destination. It's a place. So it's focusing on a place, answering the question of where somebody went. Ikapoha answers the question of when. So in a regular pepeke painu sentence, what is important is that the fact that Kimo went. That's why it's the po, ʻŌlelo o kimo. Now, what if I want to ask the question, where did Kimo go? Yeah, I'm going to focus on the where. Where? What is the question? Where did Kimo go? Well, basic idea of where, I might say mahea or ihea, to where. Oh, sorry, let me capitalize this. Yeah, that's the question, where? Ihea. And in a Kālele Kūlana, I'm going to put the word Kālele Kūlana here, remember what is focused in the pepeke painu is the painu. This is what the focus is. In a Kālele Kūlana, what is the focus is the Kūlana. Where, why, how, or when something occurs. Ihea, well, we know what's the piko or kimo. Now, this is the change that occurs. If you remember going back to what we just covered, ʻŌlelo in the Kālele Kūlana no longer stays ʻŌlelo, and in fact changes to I painuai. And really what's going on here, if you kind of really understand, I'm gonna encircle this E here, because E here actually is this is the main po'o, number one. This is now the po'o, number two. And really what happened, if you look at, we'll put a dot here, is that ʻŌlelo, which used to be the main po'o, as a pepeke painu, now holds a secondary position. In other words, it's not the main stress anymore, it's secondary. So it changes from ua to I painuai. And the last obvious stays the same. So one of the things you recognize, in fact, grammatically, that yes, we have two po'o. First po'o, ihea. Second po'o, iheliai. Focusing on the where. Now, if I'm going to answer this question, ihea o kimo iheliai kapoha, again, the idea that in the Kālele Kūlana, there are two, always two makapainu at least. To respond, to answer this question, right, I take that idea of imaui. And so if I was to answer this question, imaui, it's to Maui. The big thing about it's to Maui, kimo went, or kimo iheliai. Sorry, or pualua. Sorry about that. Pualua. Now, this is a Kālele Kūlana that is focusing on the where. So the question, ihea o kimo ihelia ika poalua? To where did Kimo go on Tuesday? Reply in Hawaiian, I Maui o kimo ihelia ika poalua. It's to Maui that Kimo went on Tuesday. Now, the big thing to kind of remember here is to really compare what's going on here. In the first sentence again, we must remind ourselves, is that the main focus is the fact, what about Kimo? That Kimo went. That action went, that painu, that's why it's a pepeke painu. In the second one here, what about Kimo? I'm asking the question, to where? Focusing on the where. Therefore, the where is the main po'o. That's what's being focused on. That's why it's called a Kālele Kūlana again. Or the reply might be, I Maui o kimo I heliai I ka poalua. It's to Maui that Kimo went. Now, the thing about the Kālele Kūlana many times is that in English, it's strange to say this perhaps in English. If I was to write in English, I probably would not write a paper that would say something like, it's to Maui that Kimo went on Tuesday. Yeah, it just sounds weird in English, but in Hawaiian, it's in fact, that is the correct way to answer that question. One of the things you quickly realize in Kālele Kūlana is that the question really is the same as the answer. If you look and compare the question and answer, they're basically the same. The only difference is that you had responded to which was asked, which was, of course, to where. So let's look at some other example. Let me clean all this off again. Other examples let me kind of just look at all the makapainu here so we can focus on, let's kind of use that same example. Maybe I'm going to ask, maybe something from English, which is, why do you go to school? Yeah, why do you go to school? And if you look at the question, you would say, how do I know this is a Kālele Kūlana? Well, what do you see? What is being focused upon? Why? Remember the ideas? Yeah. Anytime you're focusing on where, when, why, or how, it's a Kālele Kūlana. And so I'm focusing on why. Aha. And for what purpose? No kiaha. That's my poll. Why do you? Aha. I recognize that's the piko. That's who I'm talking about. No kiaha oi. That's my piko. And what did you do? Go. Aha. That's my second poll. Go. Now, what's the makapainu? Why do you go to school? Go to school. Oh, this is a habitual. This is something that happens all the time. Yeah, it's a habitual. Why do you go that? Why did you go to school? Why are you going to school? Why should you go to school? Just why do you go to school? As if it's habitual. And I would recognize in the habitual, the makapainu for habitual, in fact, is I painuai. And this is the second po'o. And where do you go to? Ike Kula. And that is my abe, the location. So the question, no ke ha'oi hele Ike Kula. That's the question. That's a Kālele Kūlana question. No kiaha is the main point of the what about you? Why? And to respond to this, yeah, in a Kālele Kūlana way, what I do, I feel that answer. No kiaha, maybe no ka oihana, maybe. I don't know. Maybe for business or for a profession. That's the purpose. That's why. No ka oihana. And of course, oi becomes ao. That's why I respond. To do what? Eheleai. And ike kula. So another common thing to remember in a Kālele Kūlana, especially as I teach in my class, is that we should recognize the question and answer are very, very similar. And in fact, it's very, very Hawaiian to, in a sense, repeat the question in the answer to clarify that I understood what the question was all about, yeah, and that in my answer, you can clearly see that it is pretty much the same question, except I'm filled in that information in replacing of kiaha. Okay, let's go look at another example again. Let's look at the makapainu. So in the makapainu, as we saw earlier, just to kind of clarify, in the pepeke painu, you might have ua. In the Kālele Kūlana, and I'm going to just put a pepeke painu up here and Kālele Kūlana. And remember that Kālele Kūlana, this becomes the second position. I'm just going to put two up here to remind you it's no longer the main position like in a pepeke painu. Yeah, the verb is always up front. It's always the main po'o. But in the Kālele Kūlana, it becomes the second po'o. But anything that's related to the ideas of ua, same ideas, now becomes I painuai. Anything that has, in fact, I could add a, ua directional ne. Right? This is the just completed, or just reached, perhaps. And this also, I directional ne. Maybe I have the sense of in the past, in progress. Yeah, was occurring. Well, in the Kālele Kūlana, good news. Exactly the same. But here, I'm going to put this big star here. Maybe I'm using eon in a sense of in the future will be occurring. And this is where I shared what I want our classes to do is to really remember to use the more formal product, the more formal way, which is in fact, you notice, eana no longer stays eana, but becomes ana ai, where the ana actually is added to the po'o. So when we think about eana, generally in the Kālele Kūlana, it is many times has to do with the past, what we call a past progressive. I like to teach it that way so it's very, very clear. Kene, ongoing, happening now, in the process of becoming, becomes ene. And the should, shall, would, ought to, command perhaps, yeah, becomes ai. And like the example we just looked at, when you have a habitual, something that generally happens all the time, that also is ai. And these are the general makapainu that you find within the Kālele Kūlana. So let's look at one more example to kind of clarify this even better. So I may take something like, maybe I make it a question. I'm going to say, mahea or pua. And let me try some of the different makapainu. Mahea or pua, maybe where did pua live? Yeah, where did pua live? Happened. Mahea or pua Hawaii. Right? Completed. Where did she live? How about where was pua living in the past? How about this? Where did pua just live? Maybe try that to keep in there. Where did it just occur? Inoho akune. Yeah, the directional ne. Mahea pua inoho akune. Where did pua just live? How about where was pua living in the past? Where was she living? Past progressive. Inoho ana. Where is pua going to live? Where should be living in the future? And we talked about that. Ana e painuai. Well, how does it work? The ana, in fact, moves up. So maheana, yeah, everybody should remember, maheana, again at the po'o, and a nohoai. And by virtue of this ana up here, this is how I know it's something to do with the future. Maheana, where will it be? Yeah, maheana. If I'm talking about where's Pua living right now, where is it happening right now? E nohone. Maheo Pua e nohone. Where should Pua live? Where would Pua live? Yeah. Where shall she live? Maheo Pua. Oh, kalamai. E noho. Nohoi. Now the thing you recognize between these two here, I'm just going to put this arrow here. You might see as being similar, but the big difference, of course, is this ana up front, which tells you the idea of will be occurring in the future. And the habitual, where does Pua live? Like, what's her usual? Where does she live every day? Yeah, in Hawaii also. And these are the general makapainu to all the Kālele Kūlana. And again, the thing to remember, over and over, you always have at least two makapainu. And you notice in the po'o ʻŌlelo, there's always two makapainu. Yeah. In regards to some of the other basics of the Kālele Kūlana, especially with questions, we should always recognize the main action of the Kālele Kūlana is the po. This is where all the focus is at. Whether it's an actual question, yeah, where, when, why, or how, or in a response. So you really, in a Kālele Kūlana, you would not emphasize a Kālele Kūlana unless there's a reason to emphasize it. In other words, I wouldn't just start off a sentence or start off a conversation by saying, Ma maui wau e nohone. Yeah, ma maui wau e nohone. Ma maui wau e nohone. Maui is where I'm living. I mean, it would be weird in English, right, if I just came up to you, shook hands, and say, Ma maui wau e nohone. Maui is where I live. I mean, the response, of course, would be, I never asked you where you live. Why are you telling me? Why are you focusing on Maui? Meaning, the reason why you use a Kālele Kūlana is because, again, you're trying to emphasize the where. So generally, perhaps in conversation, you might be answering the question of where are you living, or there's some kind of doubt, and that's why I'm focusing on Maui is where I'm living. Now, generally, if I'm going to just talk to you, I live on Maui, yeah. Ke noho nei au ma Maui. Regular pepeki painu sentence. Ke noho nei au ma Maui. I live on Maui. Somebody asks, Mahea? Mahea oi e noho nei? Ma Maui wau e noho nei. So, again, the Kālele Kūlana, common mistake also, people use Kālele Kūlana when there's real no usage. There's no purpose of the usage of the Kālele Kūlana. Kālele Kūlana, again, is used to emphasize where, when, why, and how, if that's in doubt. Okay? That's the Kālele Kūlana. Go forward and Kālele Kūlana. Aloha.